There comes a moment when every human being must make a choice: continue living as the wounded version of themselves, shaped by fear and past experiences, or rise into the calm, unshakable force they were meant to become. Not hardened but awakened, not numb but sovereign. The world will not stop testing you, life will not stop bending you. But you can learn how to stand in the storm without collapsing. You can learn how to become mentally bulletproof. There is a misunderstanding in our world about strength. People assume that strength comes from resistance, from suppressing emotion, from pretending not to care. They imagine that emotional detachment is the highest form of resilience, that silence is power, that shutting down is maturity. But this is not strength, it is armor built from old wounds. And armor, while protective, also restricts. It traps, it isolates. True inner strength doesn't come from shutting down, it comes from integration. There is a hidden truth about the mind. Every reaction you have today is a continuation of a story that began long before you were conscious of it. The nervous system remembers what the mind forgets. Your fears, your triggers, your insecurities, the way your heart tightens when someone disapproves, the way you second guess yourself. These are not flaws, they are echoes. Echoes of childhood conditioning, echoes of emotional imprints placed on you before you had language to defend yourself. You learned very early that approval meant survival, that love had a cost, that expressing your true feelings risked abandonment. So you adapted, not to thrive but to belong. And this is where the foundation of weakness or strength is laid, because the child who learns to betray themselves to keep connection becomes the adult who collapses under pressure, fears judgment, and confuses people, pleasing with peace. To become mentally bulletproof, you must return to those forgotten agreements and break them. You must unlearn who you were told to be. You must reclaim what you abandoned. The first step is honesty. Brutal, unfiltered honesty, not with others, but with yourself. Ask, where do I shrink to avoid rejection? Where do I lie to avoid conflict? Where do I tolerate what destroys my peace? Strength is not built through pretending. It is built through facing the truth, even when the truth is uncomfortable. The second step is to stop running from your shadow. Every human being carries a dark mirror inside them: unexpressed anger, shame, unmet needs, suppressed desires. Most people avoid this part of themselves because it is easier to maintain an identity, built on who they wish to be rather than who they truly are. But the shadow does not disappear simply because you ignore it. It waits, it leaks, it sabotages. Every outburst, every self-destructive pattern, every moment where you say, "I don't know why I did that," that is the shadow demanding acknowledgement. Strength begins when you turn toward it instead of away from it. When you stop asking, "How do I make this go away?" and instead ask, "What is this trying to protect me from?" Because beneath every destructive coping mechanism is an unmet need. Beneath every fear is a memory. Beneath every trigger is a story you haven't finished reading. To be mentally bulletproof means to no longer be controlled by unconscious emotion. It means to bring what is hidden into the light and say, "I see you. I will not run anymore." The third step is endurance, not just physical but emotional. Most people can tolerate joy, but very few can tolerate discomfort without trying to escape it. When sadness arises, they numb. When loneliness whispers, they distract. When anger surfaces, they repress. But avoiding discomfort weakens the mind. Discomfort is a teacher. Pain is a map. Every emotion you avoid becomes a chain. Every emotion you face becomes fuel. Sit with your discomfort, not to suffer but to understand it. When fear appears, breathe into it. When doubt speaks, listen without obedience. When the past resurfaces, let it show you what still requires healing. You become unshakable not because life stops hurting, but because pain stops frightening you. The fourth step is boundaries. Boundaries are the architecture of self-respect. Without them, the world decides your worth. With them, you become the author of your life. A mentally fragile person says yes to avoid tension. A mentally strong person says no without apology. Not from cruelty, but from clarity. Boundaries are not walls, they are filters. They separate what nourishes you from what drains you. They are the transition from survival to sovereignty. The fifth step is mastering your inner dialogue. Your mind is a battlefield, and every thought is a weapon, either used against you or for you. Your internal language shapes your emotional reality. If you speak to yourself like an enemy, you will live as one. Rewrite the script. Replace kite with "I'm learning." Replace "I'm alone" with "I'm building myself." Replace "this is happening to me" with "this is shaping me." Your subconscious believes every word you repeat. Speak with intention, not fear. The sixth step is detachment, not from emotion, but from outcome. Most suffering comes from trying to control what is not yours, to control how others see you, how life unfolds, whether things align with your expectations. The mentally bulletproof person understands that attachment creates fragility, presence creates power. When you release the need to force, you make space to allow. Strength is not gripping, it is grounded surrender. And finally, the seventh step, transformation. Becoming mentally bulletproof does not mean becoming cold, untouchable, or emotionless. It means you are no longer ruled by fear. It means external chaos no longer destabilizes your inner world. It means you respond rather than react. You observe rather than absorb. You choose rather than collapse. You stop living from wounds and begin living from wisdom. And one day, without realizing it, you will wake up and notice something extraordinary. The things that once broke you now build you. The situations that once triggered panic now awaken clarity. The people who once controlled your sense of worth no longer have access to your identity. You will walk differently, not with arrogance, but with quiet certainty. You will treat others with grace, not because you fear confrontation, but because you no longer fear yourself. You will stop chasing love, not because you don't want it, but because you finally understand that real love cannot be taken from you, only shared with you. Becoming mentally bulletproof is not a destination, it is a return. A return to the self you were before you were shaped by fear, before you were taught to doubt, before you dimmed your own light to feel safe in the world. So do not strive to be invincible, strive to be whole. Because the strongest human being is not the one who feels nothing, but the one who feels everything and remains unbroken. And as you continue this journey inward, you will begin to notice something subtle yet powerful. Your mind becomes quieter, not because life becomes easier, but because you are no longer at war with yourself. The conflict you once felt between who you are and who you pretend to be begins to dissolve. You stop seeking permission to exist. You stop waiting for someone to validate your emotions or confirm your worth. You no longer negotiate with your own boundaries. You simply know who you are, and there is no louder confidence than that. There will still be moments where doubt returns, because the past does not vanish, it integrates. Wounds don't disappear, they become wisdom. You will feel echoes, old patterns trying to pull you back, old thoughts whispering that you are not ready, not enough, not capable. And when that happens, you will not collapse. Instead, you will recognize the voice as an echo of a younger you, one who didn't yet know their strength. You will respond with compassion, not fear. You will breathe and say, "I'm safe now. We don't live in that world anymore." Healing doesn't erase the past, it rewires your relationship to it. As you evolve, something else shifts: your relationship with failure. Most people avoid failure because they believe it represents inadequacy. But failure is not the opposite of strength, it is the forge that shapes it. Every time you fall and rise, your nervous system learns resilience. Every time you endure discomfort without running, your emotional muscles strengthen. Every time you pursue what matters even when fear screams stop, you reclaim personal power. You stop asking, "What if I fail?" and begin asking, "What if this is the making of me?" Fear does not disappear with growth, it becomes a compass. It tells you where your potential lies. It reveals where your self-imposed limitations begin. To become mentally bulletproof, you must let fear become direction, not prison. And slowly, the way you interact with the world changes. You no longer rush to respond. You no longer break to defend yourself. You no longer feel threatened by difference, silence, rejection, or uncertainty. You begin to realize that your emotional reactions were never about the present moment. They were about old wounds masquerading as current danger. When you separate past from present, your mind becomes free. When you stop assuming pain means abandonment, conflict means danger, or uncertainty means failure, you step into a new level of psychological adulthood, the kind that many people never reach. Your relationships evolve too. You stop tolerating chaos disguised as passion. You stop giving loyalty to people who mistake your kindness for weakness. Instead, you seek depth, not drama, alignment, not attachment. And because you now know yourself, you no longer fear being alone. Solitude becomes a sanctuary, not a punishment. In silence, you meet your true identity, the one untouched by external noise. When you become mentally bulletproof, you no longer chase love, you become love. You no longer seek validation, you embody certainty. You no longer react, you choose. You no longer exist for approval, you exist for truth. And there is another transformation, one many do not expect. Life does not become easier, but will you become different? Challenges still appear, losses still come, change still disrupts. But instead of breaking, you expand. Instead of collapsing, you adapt. Instead of avoiding the unknown, you walk toward it with steady breath and grounded presence. You begin to trust yourself, not because you think you will never fall, but because you know you will never abandon yourself again. And that is the essence of inner strength. Not perfection, not indifference, not emotional numbness, but unwavering self-loyalty. A mentally bulletproof person is not someone who avoids pain, they are someone who refuses to let pain define them. They understand that discomfort is a doorway, not a dead end. They have learned that the world cannot wound them deeper than they have already healed from. Their confidence is not loud, it is quiet, steady, undeniable. They carry themselves differently, not with superiority, but with presence. They don't demand respect, they emanate it. They don't fear loss, they understand that what is real cannot be taken. They don't cling, they trust. They don't chase. They attract what resonates and release what doesn't with grace. At this stage, something profound happens. Your life begins to align with who you truly are. Opportunities that once intimidated you now feel natural. Conversations that once overwhelmed you now feel grounded. Dreams that once felt impossible now feel inevitable. You begin to live with intentionality rather than instinct. Instead of reacting to life, you shape it. To become mentally bulletproof is to discover a truth most never realize: the mind is not a cage. It is a tool. A tool that can either imprison you with fear or liberate you with awareness. And liberation begins the moment you decide that your past will not dictate your future. The moment you choose truth over comfort, growth over repetition, integrity over compliance, presence over distraction. This journey is not easy. It requires courage, the kind of courage that demands you look into the mirror and ask, who am I beneath my defenses? Who am I when I stop performing? Who am I when I stop running? The answers may be uncomfortable, but they will be real. And reality is the foundation of strength. Because mental strength is not about never bending, it is about knowing you are unbreakable where it matters most. So wherever you are in your story, whether you feel lost, exhausted, numb, angry, or afraid, remember this: you are not weak. You are unfinished. And there is a version of you waiting on the other side of effort. A version who breathes without fear, loves without losing themselves, and walks through life with a spine built from truth. Do not abandon the process because it is uncomfortable. Discomfort is the evidence that transformation is happening. Stay with it. Stay loyal to the future version of yourself, the one who will look back and whisper, "Thank you for not giving up." In the end, becoming mentally bulletproof is not about conquering the world. It is about mastering the only battlefield that ever truly mattered: the space between your mind and your soul. And when those two become aligned, life no longer feels like something happening to you. It becomes something unfolding through you. And that is where true power begins.